Hello, everyone. I'm Traci Arieli, end-of-life doula and founder of Comforting Closure. Welcome to another episode. Today's episode is incredibly important because we're discussing the difficult journey of having an ill child and how parents can navigate through those challenges. Joining us is Toula Saratsis, who has experienced the unimaginable loss of her daughter, Angelica. Through her grief, she found a calling in pediatric palliative care, dedicating her life to helping other families facing similar loss. In our conversation, we'll cover topics like how to ensure your child's voice is heard and respected, ways to help them experience a sense of normalcy, and how parents can advocate effectively for their child's care. We'll also discuss the unique challenges faced by hospital teams and the support parents need during and after their child's illness. Toula's insights and experiences offer invaluable guidance for anyone going through this. Welcome, Toula. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your journey with us. So, Toula, can you share your personal story and how it led you to work in pediatric palliative care?
My daughter Angelica was born normally, naturally, so I did not anticipate any complications or the journey that I would embark on after giving birth. She was born with a genetic condition that we found out after she had a crisis, a metabolic crisis, at 3 days old. We had been home and I had been breastfeeding her, taking care of her, and soon to find out later that that milk that I was feeding my own child, nourishing my child with, was toxic because of the condition that she had. She couldn't process the protein and her ammonia levels were very high. So in this first week as a parent, a new parent, and in this medical space, not knowing how to advocate and really relying on my instincts and to trust the process and to also rely on my community and my upbringing. And when we were in the emergency room, it was overwhelming, but there was this focus on helping her. And the attending physician, in her wisdom, knew that I couldn't process too much information. And she just confirmed what I already knew. She turned around and said, "Your baby is very sick." And so from there, Angelica went to NICU, was too sick for the NICU, the neonatal intensive care, and then went into the PICU, the pediatric intensive care unit, and received hemodialysis. So knowing that she wouldn't survive, possibly that she wouldn't survive, I requested that she would have a clinical baptism before any of the procedures were given. And so that's palliative care. That's the spiritual support that I could give my child. And in that moment, the team knew that that was important to us and that was honored. And so bringing something to the table without even having to read about it, think about it, it was just very natural. This is what I want to do for my child in case she dies before receiving treatment. And so that was the beginning of so many experiences that I had to rely on my own intuition and to also learn about the community that we were being plugged into, that we were being introduced to, and that was going to be partnering in the care of my child.
I listened to your story before, and I was amazed how you listened to Angelica throughout everything, throughout her illness and throughout her life. And you let her make the decisions about what worked for her. How can parents make sure that their child's voice is heard and respected?
Being included, understanding that the child is also going on their own journey, and understanding that that's something that we cannot take away from them. That was probably one of the most powerful realizations that I had early on, that my child would have to endure suffering and that my child would have to have a life that was very difficult. And it was important for me to support some sort of control in her life, that she was an individual that was going to be having all of these experiences and giving her the tools, if you will, to help her through this. And the most important part, and circling back to that idea of voice and choice. And so she was primarily nonverbal because of a massive metabolic stroke, took away her ability to speak. She could make sounds. She did say a couple of words, but we communicated. And parents know, families know, caregivers know the energy of their child. And there were times where she couldn't speak. I could feel what she needed and trusting that. And that also empowered her to let me know what she wanted.
Just to give listeners a background and an idea of how long Angelica was in and out of the hospital, how from the very first time she went into the hospital, how many times did she go into the hospital? What was that journey?
Well, it was many, many times. So she lived to be about almost 7 years old, and she had different types of hospitalizations, whether they were, we would call them tune-ups, where she needed some fluids and she'd stay overnight for observation or a couple nights, to full-blown crises where she was in the PICU with life-sustaining equipment, whether it was dialysis or a ventilator. And of course, along with that are all the clinic visits. She was followed by many different kinds of clinics, and so the hospital was her second home. And that is a testament to the families that experience this. This is their lifestyle, and knowing that they have to carve out space as a unit, as a community in this foreign environment, and to make it their own. And that's what we had to do. When we were hospitalized, it was important for her to know that she still had that control and that she had those choices. And even when she was on the ventilator and not able to communicate, I would touch her hand, put items in her hand, and let her know that I was there, read to her, let her know what was going on, and who was in the room. And so those were the types of strategies that I was able to learn to be able to care for others or to coach others in this situation. Angelica was a great teacher, not only for me as a parent, but for the community that she was plugged into. There were quite a few medical folks that were watching and seeing how strong she was, as many of the children are in these situations, and how we were interacting and making sure that she had full control.
Now, you tried to build a normalcy around her childhood as much as possible, and you have this community. So you just talked about the families and how you build this community. So what is that like from a child's perspective, as far as having people to play with or having people, other children to be around?
And I'm going to speak first to the isolation. That's not always easy. Sometimes, actually many times, the possibility of having play dates or having people over or going to other people's homes for any type of interaction on a social level is not available. Whether it's through illness, fear of having other illnesses, exposed to any virus, I'm going there. Quite frankly, there are a lot of folks that are uncomfortable with hosting children with special needs or fragile medical care children. It can be a very eye-opening experience for people that raise children who have these complications and are so innocent and still want to explore and communicate and to be normal in that sense of going over to somebody's house or playing. It's complicated. It's not easy. There's usually pre-planning involved, if it's possible. And the folks that come over to the home have to be comfortable in this sometimes medical settings, if you will, or routines, especially with Angelica's situation. She had to have medication, formula, at specific times. If she was overexcited, that would compromise your system. So just that balancing was important for us to be able to monitor, for her to have these interactions, for have people over, but those opportunities weren't very many. School was the most, I want to say, the most important community for her, because that's where she was independent and making her own friends, and her personality blossomed in the classroom.
Okay, great. And that the school that she was going to, was that a special school or
It was in public education, in the POHI class, physically otherwise health impaired class. And so she did have a nurse in the classroom. There were parapros. She had the physical therapy, occupational therapy, everything was all included. And we worked closely with the staff to train them on her specific care. And when I teach and I work with other families, I show them this binder I created. It's nice to have information digital, but the binder is there. It's physical. You can carry it, and it's basically a manual for her care. And so that was helpful in ensuring that her needs were met, that people knew what her medications were, what her level of language, how she can communicate. And so there's quite a bit of information that the folks at school also shared with me and their observations. And so it became this partnership.
Being that she was in and out of the hospital, I'm sure she had a lot of friends who were also part of that community and in and out of the hospital. Most kids do not have to worry about death or experience it. How do the kids handle, knowing that their friends are sick, and when another child dies, how do you comfort them? What does that look like?
Saying that children are open and they follow our lead. And if we create a space for them to communicate how they feel and what they need, is going to be helpful for their grief. There's no formula, and each child is different and each experience is different. I recall when Angelica was in school, the preschool, and one of her classmates died. And so that was really intense for all of us, because we know it's a possibility. And so how do you talk to your child about that? Your classmate's not coming back, right? And so it was a learning curve for me. That was the first time that I really thought about, well, my child could die in the classroom as well, or my child may not return to the classroom. How would I want my child to be memorialized, or how would we want her legacy to influence the kids and the staff? And so the family that experienced the loss did a phenomenal job of reaching out to all of us and including us in memorial, and to know that we were grieving on a different level, because it's not just going to a memorial or going to a viewing of a child. This is also the possibility of my own child's reality. And so in a sense, that is why community is so important, and especially people that are going through the same situation. And that's how we can support our kids, is just in that knowing. Some folks are, I want to say, more stuck in their own reluctance to talk about it. And so that is a detriment to children. Children really do need that openness. And I really feel, from that experience, that was so important for me as a parent and later on as a doula to really take on that raw experience and whatever emotions came forth and how I could support my child and talk to my child about it. And Traci, along with that, that's part of the preparation for our children, that we can do a great service for them, that we know that they have life-limiting conditions, or that they have these traumatic illnesses, these life-limiting illnesses, is to help them talk about their fears and what they want to do in the time that they have. And in a sense, that's the preparation piece that's so important.
Thank you. What activities or routines helped Angelica feel like a kid, even when she was going through the illnesses?
Normal routine, getting up, watching TV, playing on the playmat, having boundaries. She needed those too. And she pretty much had free reign, but there were times where she did need to have some sort of boundary. And so that's important. Sometimes we feel like we shouldn't discipline our children that are having these experiences, but that was normal, and she needed that. And so and there were timeouts and all of that. That was important for her to know that she could also have consequences to her actions. Allowing her to request what she wanted to do as well. So, for example, going to the store. Do you want to go to the store, or do you want to go for a walk? Which store do you want to go to? Do you want to go to Myers, or do you want to go to Plum Market? And so she would let us know. She would let me know what she would prefer. And that's normal for kids. And so, and it goes back to that voice and choice. It's not just for medical situations, not just for heavy situations, but every day. And allowing her to explore her interests and hobbies. And she loved being outdoors, and she loved being at the beach when the weather was right. And so just encouraging that and doing that as much as possible. She enjoyed shopping and clothing, and encouraging that and allowing her to express herself through that, and in a way that was her representation to the world, was her clothing, her shoes. She really enjoyed receiving compliments. It wasn't just somebody seeing her with choreiform movements or in a chair, or so that was important for that normal childhood experience. Just really knowing that there were no limits for her interests, and that was so important for me to witness in her, that she just enjoyed so much, and reading to her, and what she would come back from school with. And so, and going back to that idea as well, that if a child can go to school, that's so important, and to keep that anchor, that normalcy of family life. Even when she was hospitalized, any communication from her classmates, from the school, was so important, that kept her life normal. And so any type of routine would also be transferred to the hospital. For example, our evening ritual. She would be bathed, and then she would give her a massage, and she would let me know what part of the body needed more attention, whether it was her neck or her legs or her arms. And she was in constant movement, so I'm sure that there was a lot of pulling. And so she'd pick her pajamas, and she'd have her beauty care routine and all of that. And then we would say the Lord's Prayer together. And so all of that, and being able to do that in the hospital and ending the day with that, was so important for her. And anything that is important to the child and is normal at home, and being able to follow through in other areas is going to be so helpful in keeping life predictable.
Yeah, that's really important for children, period. I mean, that routine is, so for most parents, having an ill child was really the first time that they experienced medical system to the point of what you need to go through. How can a parent best understand the medical needs of their child, being at that many times this is the first time people are dealing with this?
Being open to the learning curve. Folks won't know right away everything, and that's okay, and that's very frightening. Being in almost like a foreign country with different language, different culture, and also knowing that in that space, you're still the parent, or you're still the caregiver. You're the person that's taking care of your child and being an advocate. And it's okay to ask questions. And I've personally experienced this, and I witnessed this, and I hear stories about it. People become experts on their children's condition, and that's not always, I don't want to say welcome, that doesn't sound right, but that's not always recognized. That they will do anything possible, that we do anything possible to help our child. And no matter what education level, no matter what experience with medical background, people emerge as experts just to make sure that their child have the best possible care, and to also be on the lookout in these spaces, especially in these larger institutions where there's so many moving parts. It's not that folks want to make a mistake. There are medical errors, but we are the ones that ultimately have that responsibility. And whoever else is part of that care for the child in the community.
What advice do you have for parents who want to be strong advocates for their child's care, especially when it comes to those really tough decisions like DNR, do not resuscitate, DNI, do not intubate, those orders?
Trust your instinct. And it's not going to be easy. I know for myself, Angelica was ready to stop any type of life-sustaining measures, any treatments. Her body was also starting to show signs of decline very rapidly. And so I knew that it was time. And it's interesting because it's not always brought up. And even and I've used this example before. Even when she has flatlined previously and had all of these medical issues that were unexplainable, and presentations that were anomalies in her lab work, and also in just in her behavior, the fact that she was sitting up and watching a show, and her lab work was pretty much showing that she should not even be interacting with anything or anyone, was an indication that there was something very, very wrong, if you will. Not exactly wrong, but something that was going in a different direction, because it's a different path. Okay, and so when there's decline, and when there's just in the medical unfolding of a prognosis or a condition, we know, and so we were not having these conversations when we needed to, and in fact, we probably should have had them a lot sooner, even when she was a newborn. And so, fast forwarding to the idea of DNR and DNI, any type of other situations like authorizing dialysis or anything else that would promote any type of curative care, folks know. And so sometimes people are not ready. And I remember a story a nurse had shared quite a few years ago, that one of her patients was a 9-year-old, and she told her, my mom's not ready to talk about me dying yet. I'm ready, she's not, so let's wait a little bit. Kids are wise. And so that circles back to the idea of really listening to them, and also knowing that It is really, really a difficult position to be in, to have to make those decisions and to feel, even though I knew it was right, it felt horrible. The pit of my stomach, it was tight, but I knew it was right. And so, it's a long story to get right to the point that trust your instinct again. It's so important, and to know that we're going to experience emotions that will be telling us otherwise, and that's okay. That's part of the grief, the anticipatory grief that we have and that we live through.
Thank you. How did you balance your hope for your daughter, for her to not fully recover, but to live very healthily, to live longer, with the reality of her prognosis?
It's interesting because it's a straddling of two worlds, right? And it's knowing that she was so fragile that she could die in her sleep, or that we could be out and she could have a crisis, and so without warning. And then it always amazes me how families, how communities, how medical folks really know that hope is not always a cure. However, hope is what strengthens us and what helps us to overcome anything that keeps us from really protecting our children from the negative idea that there's something wrong with them, because there's not. It's just their life is different. And the outcome of the disease is not something that's a punishment. It's not something that anyone did anything wrong about. It's just however they were born uniquely, and they had to experience and whatever situations that came from that. So hope is not always the cure. However, it is the foundation of how we live, and it keeps us in that light and in the love that is necessary to support our children.
Now, I'm not sure, was Angelica your first child? Or did...
My only child.
Okay. When you're working with parents who have an ill child and they also have a sibling, they have brothers or sisters, how can those parents help siblings understand and cope with their brother or sister's illness?
It's unique in every situation. And of course, the first step is to think about the developmental level. And as an outsider looking in, for me, I always think about, well, are there any other types of beliefs, spiritual connections, any foundation that the child already has that can connect to end of life or connect to their grief? And so, as I mentioned before, children will follow the lead of the adults in the community, and also allowing for perhaps not even wanting to say anything. And I witnessed that before as well. But it really speaks again to the wisdom of children, that they know and they're aware that they're heavy situations, and if they can be supported in their own timing of how they want to talk about the death of, or the pending death of a sibling, or when they want to. And so again, it really is unique to the individual child and to the family's beliefs and the spiritual connections, if they have them. It's important for outsiders especially to really support that idea. Not all children are going to want to talk, but they're going to want to know it's okay when they're ready.
Medical care is outrageously expensive in the US. Even if you have insurance, it's outrageous. Are there resources available to help cover the cost of the child's medical care?
There are, and it depends from state to state. There are different foundations, organizations that will help supplement. There are children's special insurances through state coverage available in many cases. Many families, and that's an excellent question because it really speaks to the lifestyle. Many families do have to put work on hold or career on hold, and that does affect income. And so there are people that do rely on sources like GoFundMe, especially during really in really intense crises where either a parent or caregivers cannot work. The help is there, but it's not abundant. And especially post-COVID, many of the programs that existed and any of the support programs that were emerging pre-COVID were not as strong, especially with the funding and the availability of folks to staff such organizations.
What can parents do to help their child cope with pain and discomfort?
They're the different, especially with palliative care, they're the different aspects of that. There's the advocacy for the medicine that's available to help, if possible. There were times where I knew my child needed, for example, morphine, and so that was something that was a conversation that needed to be had, especially with crises in the hospital, and so there's also the idea of that. The spiritual pain and the idea of working through the loss of what's possible and not being able to have an everyday normal mundane life all the time. And so however that needs to be addressed by the folks caring for the child is going to be more of who they are as a community and a family unit. Yeah, there's so many different layers of support for addressing pain, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional pain, and it's really understanding what's going to work best for your child by trial and error as well. I know for us, part of that was aromatherapy, and so I explored that on my own as a parent, and I talk about that with folks as well. That for Angelica, lavender was so important, and it was very calming, and so that was part of her care, especially when she was feeling anxious, or it was always in the hospital room, or she just needed a little bit in the car to calm down. So it's just, I knew my child, and so it's just trial and error and seeing what your child needs. It can also be as simple as a comfort toy or object that the child can have or carry, and that does help to address pain. If there is intense physical pain, then that really that's more in the medical sphere. And knowing there are times where children cannot communicate how much pain, and there are also times when children, even older children, will not say how much pain they're in so that they do not upset their people. And that's important to recognize too, is knowing it's and having those conversations, knowing it's okay if you hurt, let's take care of that. And so kids know energy, and it circles back to their wisdom, and so they know when their people are upset, and they don't want to see them suffer as much as we don't want to see them suffer.
So I have two questions from that. You mentioned aromatherapy. So people are very used when they get into these situations to talk about the medical team. What does that bigger team, if you're helping parents figure out that team, what does that bigger team looks like? Because it's just not the medical team. They're
Right. It's the community, and there are other layers of support. The medical team's important, and they're very much part of that foundational care to make sure that children receive what they need, and also for the people taking care of them, the knowledge and that type of support. But really, where the most important care is the layers of support outside of a medical institution. And these are the folks, these are the organizations, these are the places that get overlooked the most. And this is where it's important for me as an educator, as a deaf educator, as a community deaf care educator, to really bring that out. That folks need support and education and awareness so that they can help their own people. For example, if there's a spiritual community, they're going to be the ones that can activate and mobilize folks for food, for just lawn care, laundry, things that are so important to keep families going, especially if they have more children at home and that they're at the hospital. And so sometimes people just don't know what to do, and they need that permission, and they need that education. And who is in the care of the child, and an important influence to them, whether it is grandparents, other blended family members, and it could be neighbors. For us, our spiritual advisor, our parish priest, was a very big part of decision making and Angelica's care, and so he was in the hospital quite a bit, especially during crises, and staff would recognize that. I completely respect the role of chaplains, and we also need to know that it's okay to request your people to come in and to fulfill your spiritual needs. And so there's so many other people out there that can help, like in the school systems. And again, it's raising that awareness, it's giving that permission, it's letting them know. And it's part of that doula network too, right? That education and training is great and it's important. However, anyone can step in and doula a family that is close to them, knows them, and can be a part of that care. And what we need to really think about as well is how do we combine those worlds? And that's the next step, because pediatric palliative care is not available for all children. Not all hospices have a pediatric focus or support. And so that is very more difficult on the families and to the people caring for them. Because if you have staff that's reluctant to care for children, babies and children, if they're sick and dying, that is going to translate into a very difficult and complicated situation. It really is about people helping to create memories. Circling back to my daughter's deathbed, when she was actively dying, we supported her as a community. I invited anyone that was important in her care in our community to come in and to spend time with her. And reading books, bringing gifts, that was so important to her. And so had they not had that permission from me, then they wouldn't have done that, and it wouldn't have created the memories that they needed, that she needed, and that what we needed. And so it's reframing that experience into something that doesn't take away the pain, it holds space for it.
You mentioned this, in a hospital, if they don't have a pediatric department, they're not used to working with kids, or so that's a really big challenge. What does collaboration look like in that situation, or how can, even if there is a pediatric team and things are great in the hospital. What does that collaboration look like between the medical team and the parents and the child?
Is building trust. That's the most important part. And we as outside consultants are in a situation where that is the most important work that we're going to be doing right now, is building that trust. And it's not that folks in the traditional mainstream medical systems do not want help or are not open to the help, is that they don't know what we bring to the table as doulas, as community members, and it's really building that trust and allowing for relationships to form. And relationships are never perfect. And really coming in with love and understanding that people that do this for a living in the medical system might feel threatened by outside care or outside support. And that's not a criticism. It is the reality. And I have experienced that as a parent of a child that was very sick, very ill. I had to advocate for folks to come in or to recognize the support that my child needed in that medical space. And as a doula myself, really having to advocate not only for the family but for myself, and building that trust and recognition that I'm here to help, that I'm not here to take anyone's responsibilities or jobs away, that it really is about partnership and making sure that the family's taken care of in the best possible way. And it's not that the mainstream traditional institutions, systems cannot provide support and help, but that there are limitations. And we're seeing that many of the practices, especially in pediatric palliative care, are not sustainable because of staffing issues, funding issues, the availability, limited availability. And so we really need to focus in on the human connection and understand that informing these relationships and changing culture, it's going to take time, and there's going to be that challenge in transformation of what's going to be best for children and their families.
Being a caretaker is very difficult. What kind of support do parents need when their child is ill, and where can they find it? And not only helping the child, but really helping doing self-care, help for the parent.
And Traci, what's coming to mind right now is validation. That is probably the best support you can give folks, is validating what they're experiencing. Sometimes it's not possible to step away. And especially if, and I've seen this in my work as well, people need to take care of their kids and they're their experts. So stepping away and having a spa day or going on a trip, a day trip is not possible. And they may not feel as the best way for that self-care. Self-care comes through validating their experiences, letting them know that it's okay to struggle. Often folks are seen as superheroes and having these superpowers and taking care of seriously ill children, medically fragile children, and having a job and going to the grocery store and doing all that. It's not that they're superheroes, is that they're in survival mode. And so it really speaks to again, that idea of community and stepping in to support the best way possible. People are not in a position to host all the time. And so if it would be possible for folks to drop off groceries at the doorstep, that would be huge. Or to offer to say, I know that it's been a really difficult week. Why don't I take your kids out to the park or to a museum or somewhere, something so that the family can have a break in a different way. And one of those things that was so important for me, I had Angelica's aunt would come in and sit with her while I would take a shower. Sometimes, that wasn't possible, and so that care was so intense and that monitoring that meant so much to me. Just having that time to take a shower in peace and not having to worry about an alarm or anything happening, and I knew somebody was there.
As a caretaker, your life really does revolve around the person who you're taking care of. After the person dies, in your experience with Angelica, after she passed away, there's this big space where you're not a caretaker anymore. How did you cope with that? How did you find support?
For me, it was having a home funeral for her. That was the ideal transition for myself. And so being able to care for her in her bed and to take care of her body, to prepare her body. Folks that don't know what home funerals are, it can be different for different situations. The home funerals can happen in a hospital setting. It really is connecting with your loved one and taking care of them, whether it's washing or just being with the body for a period of time to begin grieving their physical change. And so it's taking in the reality. And for me, it just was so natural going from having my hands occupied and looking at pumps and syringes and all of that, that was muscle memory. And so once that was gone, the home funeral was a nice transition into keeping busy and having her in the home without all of the traditional medical routines that we had. So that I could speak from that experience, but it was very difficult. Once the physical parting was permanent, that was probably one of the most challenging parts of transitioning into daily life and not knowing what to do with myself and having just having my brain occupied all the time. And so folks will say this as well, even with people that take care of adults, going out to the grocery store after a loved one dies, you feel guilty because you feel like I need to get back. And then you're there and you're like, well, I'm taking time. I don't know what I should be doing. All of that, or even doing something that that you wouldn't normally do because your loved one has died and you're not taking care of them. There's a different kind of grief there, and there's a lot of guilt. It's part of the process.
Yeah, so well put.
Grief.
So well put. When I help people in the grieving process, most of my work is in the grief coaching. When I go to their homes, a lot of times I'll open their fridges and nothing. Yeah, there isn't food there. And then I get them out to the grocery store and I actually go with them to the grocery store. It is a different world. Things just are on hold almost, the paying the bills, not, I help people go and make sure they're built. I will take and do that practical work. And I think that friends and the communities don't really understand. It's not that they don't understand. It's they feel uncomfortable with taking and showing up at a person's house or asking, hey, do you need help? Do you just want me to sit by you while we could figure out the bills? Or let's go shopping, or do you need me, as you said, to drop off food? What do you want? In our culture, there's just not space for people to do that, or awareness, I think.
And that's the point, and that's what it is, and that's our role as educators, and making this more normal, normalizing the idea that people will need help. You cannot comfort. I'm sorry. You cannot console the loss. It's possible, but really what folks need is for that space to be held for them, and the practicality of the empty refrigerator, all of it, and learning how to live in a different way is that bereavement process. But what I really want to speak to as well is some of the beginning rituals, so to speak, that folks can do, especially if they have kids with life-limiting conditions or medically fragile status. That most often there's medical equipment, there's medications. That's something that can be done in the first 2 to 3 weeks, to donate, to make sure that gets moved out of the house, and having people to help with that as well. There's a great deal of satisfaction to know that whatever was helping a person, helping a child, helping a sick loved one, can help someone else. And that's the first act of giving back.
It's very nice. Are there any resources that you could recommend for parents looking to learn more about supporting their child?
It really is a unique experience, going back to that. There are immediate resources within their spiritual worlds, or whoever they look for advice to. It can be within the medical community, their teams, and there are many organizations out there that are disease specific, that are like family to people. And whether it's the genetic condition or congenital heart disease, or failure, there are organizations out there that will support with open arms and help guide people through this unknown path, that have similar experiences. There's also larger organizations like the Courageous Parents Network that has so many resources. It's an excellent platform to explore, not only for families to help their children. There's quite a bit of literature and videos. It's very user friendly, but also for providers. There's a portal for providers to have that same support for communicating, and to support families on how to find resources as well.
Is there anything else? We're almost at the end of time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners about navigating the journey of having an ill child?
Fear is okay. Grief is normal. Pain is inevitable. Enjoy the process as much as possible. As many unknowns that are there, the presence of love is going to be the most powerful medicine that you can give to yourself, to your child, and to the community.
Thank you so much, Toula, for being on the show today. Your story is incredibly touching. If people want to learn more about your work or get in touch with you, how can they?
I'm on the social media. I can send you that information. Yes, Instagram, Facebook. My Facebook page is public, as well as Instagram. I do share not only my journey as a bereaved parent, and I also share resources that I come across, whether they're books or events, like online events, in-person events, for families, for providers, for practitioners, to learn more.
And your work right now, what you do is you are a death care educator, and a doula, and you do work with many parents, their experiences.
And there's also a book coming out, a guidebook. I have a co-author we've been working on. It'll be available for free, and it'll be an online resource, and that's coming hopefully soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for making that available for everyone. That I'll be sure, of course, to read it, but I'll make sure when it comes out, I'll make sure to post about it.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. So folks, today's conversation has highlighted the incredible courage and dedication it takes to care for a seriously ill child. Toula's experiences remind us of the importance of listening to our children, helping them find moments of joy, and advocating for their needs with immense love. Remember, you are not alone. There are many resources and supportive communities out there, and people like Toula who have walked this path and are here to help. Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please comment below or reach out to me directly. And if you've found this conversation to be helpful, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. This is Traci Arieli from Comforting Closure, wishing you peace and comfort in your journey. Until next time, take care.